Yeah. One?
In January, I think the tax cut for the rich expires. Would you vote to extend it, or would you let it expire?
Explain the tax cut for the rich, because my understanding is the spectrum of the Bush tax cuts goes beyond just the rich. So are you talking like picking?
I don't know the specifics, but I don't think so.
Well, 95% of the people under Obama's administration, when he's authorized it, is they would not experience, they would continue with their tax cuts. He wants to take the top 2 to 3% of those who earn $250,000 or more. Tim Geithner talked about it this morning on Meet the Press, and eliminate their tax cuts. And somebody on Meet the Press talked about also how Warren Buffett had said that would be a good move for the economy, because the people, the 95% who deserve to have that tax break, are the people who have been hurting enough. Those are the people who've experienced home losses, job losses, etc. Whereas the top 2 to 3% have maintained strong incomes, and so that's why they want to eliminate the tax cut for those at the top. That is what it's talking about there.
You mentioned Tim Geithner. There's always somebody on the other side. Bernie doesn't think that tax cuts, that ending the tax cuts would be a good plan. I know in the district they're not in favor of ending the tax cuts. Talking to the business people that I've talked to, in terms of asking about jobs, and obviously that's a huge concern. And I asked, should the government be given more incentives or different things? And what I hear more from people is they want stability. They want to know what the rules are. They just feel like things keep changing, and either the change now, they're having a hard time coping with it, or the change projected coming up. They're afraid to hire, afraid to expand, because they're not quite sure what the rules are going to be.
So are you aware of what's gone by in the new tax bill that was just signed this last week, or the new bill to help stabilize our financial markets and all? Are you aware of any of that bill at all? And are you aware of the fact that they are part of the, in addition to that tax cut expiration for the 95% of the people within that is will be tax incentives for small businesses, so that they can go ahead and begin hiring more people and loosen the ability for them to get loans for the business.
That's another concern that people have is that with the financial reforms prior to this bill that was just passed, the banks aren't freeing up the money. They're having a hard time getting the money freed up. I'm not aware of the specifics of the 2,400-page bill, so I'm not aware of the specifics on it, but it does address, again, what I just mentioned. You talk about the incentives for the people next year to free up the money and stuff like that. What I got from the people I was talking to was they just want stability. They don't care about the stimulus, the incentives or things along those lines next year, or what's happening this. They just want the rules to stay the same, so that they can plot out what's going to happen. And whereas this is obviously good news for a small business in its intent, if the small businessman doesn't understand it, then it doesn't have the reaction that people want.
At risk of monopolizing here, the ordinary person doesn't realize what is in a lot of those bills, and that would be up to you to inform yourself of a lot of this, so that we know what your position is on a lot of them. You can't just listen to a person saying, I want to stabilize things. Well, you've got to know, they've got to know, yes, this is how we're going to stabilize it, and I don't know what your positions are in that regard. When you were out at the soccer field on Cary Road getting petitions, you asked me to sign the petition, and I chose not to, because I asked you about, at that point, the health reform had not passed. And I asked you some specific get questions on that, and you didn't have any knowledge, and I thought, I don't want somebody out there that, because right now I have nobody to vote for. And I want somebody in there who's running as an independent or whatever, who has some ideas of what's being done and what needs to be done for our country. And I think we've got a little work to do on that before you get the vote of a lot of us.
And I won't get the vote of several of you, because I would disagree with the premise that I have to explain it to them. The bill should be explained, should be presented as it's presented. If I was presenting the bill, if I was writing the bill, I absolutely have to make my case to the people. The frustration I think so many people are feeling, I don't sense anger. I mean, there are a few people who are angry, but there's a lot of frustration among voters that these bills come through and people don't have time to read them. People don't know exactly what they mean. And you can paraphrase and you can say, well, it's supposed to do this and it's supposed to do that. But once it's put into play, people interpret it in different ways. And so it doesn't always turn out the way people want it to. So again, I honestly feel like running as a representative, if the people are wrong, that's our right to be wrong. We can be wrong. If we miss it, if our district doesn't see things in a way that it doesn't turn out the way we thought things would be, if we vote for cap and trade, and then we find out that well, it actually had a bigger impact on Indiana than any other state, maybe we shouldn't have voted on it. That's okay. We have a right to make a mistake. I truly believe that the 700,000 people in the district, the brain power that is untapped, can come up with any solution. I'm a huge believer in the people. Again, that's why I'm not running as a party representative.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What can you suggest that would help increase the employment? I've got a son that's been unemployed for over 2 years, and of course his unemployment ran out, and it was just renewed. I don't know if he'll get any of it or not, but then the employment in Indiana, I mean, it's still 15–18%, I believe, in the northern part of Indiana, and that's where my son lives. So, is there anything that you can suggest that legislation that would help?
Well, we've got money in the stimulus, and I guess one thing I did agree with President Obama was the push for rebuilding the infrastructure. You can create a lot of job opportunities there, but it hasn't taken off as much as we had hoped it would. The financial reform bill that just passed, like I said, I presented the idea to people. Tax incentives help. And you know, that Nasser Hannah had also suggested tax incentives. You know, I think that's, from the government's perspective, from the government's role, I think that's a big thing we can do, is give them clarity in terms of what the playing field is, what the rules are, and a sound guess in terms of how things will turn out. Give them the incentives to hire, the tax breaks to hire, and listen to them and find out what they need.
Would you extend it on what? Would you vote